Welcome to the Thanksgiving Hangout. I have been looking forward towards this great moment in my life. I'm going to talk to you about my own personal life a little bit before I give the presentation. I just came here and sat in front of the camera, and my mind was not there, or my consciousness was not there, and it was back in here, and I have to pull it out to the cortex regions, particularly to the frontal lobe, and make myself alert in order to do the job. There are two kinds of consciousness, according to me. Speaking from my own personal experience, one is a divine consciousness or an altered state of consciousness in which the rational mind is not very active. But then there is tremendous amount of intelligence, unity consciousness, peace and happiness, and no fear or anxiety. And when that happens is when you pull your consciousness to the midbrain and to the back of the brain, to the cerebellum area. And when you live from there, there is a tremendous amount of intelligence and happiness. But then it's not very useful when you come in front of a camera and do a presentation. So what happens? What happens is, you live in a state of consciousness in which even speech is a disturbance, even a thought is a disturbance. So you have to bring a thought at the expense of the tremendous amount of silence and intelligence and come into the world of a linear reality. But then that is not particularly useful in the day-to-day world. The reason why I am saying about this on this day is because it is very important for us to know the difference between living an altered state of consciousness and living an ordinary state of consciousness. And it creates some conflict, because you have to stay really, really alert on this world in order to do your mundane job. And if you don't, you will make mistakes. So a certain amount of training is needed so that you can go back and forth into these two consciousness. Not that it cannot be done, not that the information that I am giving is new. It is as old as Bhagavad Gita at least. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, hey, you have to remain focused on this earth plane and do your job. And your job as a warrior is go to the battlefield and kill people. And that's your job. And you cannot just give up that. Why? Because that's your dharma. That's how you live this world earth plane, because it's a material plane, it's a plane of action. Action means work. And if you quit that, then you will fail. So he says, yogastha kuru karmani. But at the same time, you should remain in yoga. In modern terms, you should be able to live in the midbrain and the cerebellum, centered there, and also centered in the cortex, neocortex. And that is the training that is needed so that we can have a very balanced life. And both of them bring in their own merits. What is the merit of this rational brain? The science and technology. I am able to talk to you. I am in San Diego. But I am able to reach all over the world thanks to Google. And it has made the service available for free to everyone, so that I can broadcast myself to you without any cost. And that comes from science and technology. So we cannot dump science, but then we cannot dump faith or superconsciousness either. And that is my Thanksgiving message. And how to bring them together so that we are not completely lost in this mundane world with ego and hurting people. Nor are we lost in the domain of the spiritual world, in which we become like comatose. It's like a divine coma. That's what happens when you lose your rational consciousness. So you have to bring these two hand in hand, and that is very important. Then you can reap the merits from both levels of consciousness. And this is how life has to be lived. It's 200% life, 100% staying in this world and doing whatever you need to do, because there's a lot of work to be done on this earth plane. It's, it is easy to go and hide in the Himalayas or in a monastery and then get lost in a divine coma. I'm not criticizing that. If you want to do that, it's a very pleasant experience. You can do that if that is your dharma. If that is what you are destined to do in this lifetime, you are going to do that anyway. But then that's not even easy, because you will be lost between the two types of consciousness. That's why it is important that some education is needed to have, to be able to live in both consciousness. Look at a person like Einstein. You may think that he is just a scientist. He was a spiritualist as well, and he knew the limitations of both. That's why he said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. So we have to bring them together. Otherwise, we will be living a lopsided reality. And we have to be relevant to the times we are living in. We are living in the 21st century. So the no paradigm of the past is going to be fully useful. We can pick and choose from them, but then not completely dedicate ourselves to the paradigm of maybe 10 centuries before or 100 centuries before. Those are not relevant today, because we have now moved from a civilization that completely was given to faith and not to science. And now we have a lot of goodies coming to us from the science. So we have to live them side by side, and then Einstein's formula works good. We have to bring religion and science together, and that is my mission in this lifetime. So you have to be enlightened, you have to be centered in the midbrain and experiencing the non-mind and then the unlimited intelligence with the limitations of the mind, the linear mind that is caught up in the neocortex area. Then we will live a life which is not lopsided. Now, faith is the primary message for today, because faith represents the highest intelligence. And unfortunately, it is very difficult for us living in this era to carry faith. Although we say we believe in God or we trust in God, we print it in the dollar bill and so forth. But then we do not feel faith deep inside. It is only a cerebral expression. It is not deep inside. It's not coming out from deep inside, because faith seems to become somewhat alien to us, because we are living more in the cortex region. But still, my point is, it's possible to live them together. Look at Einstein. I just quoted what he said. He lived in both without creating any conflict. He said very clearly, where science ends, their religion begins. This is this domain of limited knowledge, which is science, and there is a domain of unlimited knowledge. And he acknowledged that all the things that was able to contribute, no one contribute to this world, came from the intuitive mind. He was very, very upfront about it, not from the rational mind. So he put both in place. And he knew some physics and math, and he was able to do a good job with it. But then when he was dying, he said that I needed more physics and more mathematics, because I know a lot more than I have been able to express, because I don't have the math skills. That was this last frustration which I was reading in his biography. So that is needed. He knew that there is a place for math, which is just a linear science. But at the same time, his intuitive mind was able to grasp a reality that he was trying to express, and he was unable to express. That's why we should bring them together. Okay, and then so when Einstein said this, he knew from his own experience that they have to be together. But if a yogi comes and says that science is no good, it is not to be taken seriously, because the yogis to some extent live in a la-la land, because he doesn't care about this world. And that's what happens to most of the spiritual people. They are goofy, and they fail in life, and then they are lost. So that's why it is important to go hand in hand with this science on the one hand, and faith or intuition on the other hand. Now, as I said, it is very difficult for us to maintain faith in this world, because science is completely geared to the rational brain. So from day in and day out, we live the scientific and technological world. Where is the place for faith? There is no place for faith, because we are completely overwhelmed and driven by this machine-driven civilization. There is no room for us to live faith. It's not only a matter of the problem of today. Even during the time of Jesus, faith was difficult. Didn't he say that if you have faith like a mustard seed, you can move mountains? He knew that even to hold faith to the size of a mustard seed is difficult. But even that amount of faith can move mountains. And that is what we need in the 21st century, because we have gone too far into science and completely dumped faith to superstition. Faith is not superstition. Faith is the highest intelligence that's possible. It is the faith that gave Einstein the stature that he enjoys today. The intelligence that he drew from is from the domain of faith, the domain of God, that God brain. And that faith is going to help us to integrate the two so that we can create a new civilization, because we cannot dump either of them. And faith is even more important because, as Jesus said, faith can move mountains. And it doesn't make sense to a scientist. How can a mountain move? A mountain can move. It's only a perception. Now the quantum physics is now telling us that there is nothing solid. Everything is in a flux. It's an observer's experience. Whatever you observe is what is reality. So if you can get into this domain of the cerebellum area or the midbrain area, and your consciousness is concentrated in that, time changes, space changes. Then at that time, everything is possible. That is the miracle domain. I have been struggling hard to understand this myself. That's why I said I am very excited to do this program for you, because I was torn between this scientific model and model of the yogi. I started out with teaching pure yogic techniques, and then, if you have seen my pictures 10 years ago, I had a beard that came up to my belly button, and then my hair behind was hanging out too long, and then when I was moving in the airport, I couldn't even imagine how I did that. Because whenever I passed through the airport, people would make all kinds of comments. But then I was not concerned about anything at all. Whoever wants to say, pass a comment on me, and I didn't simply care. And I just was going through the airports all over the world. In those days, I used to travel a lot. And I will be in France one day, and then in Italy another day, and then back in New York, and I was traveling like that. But in those days, I was just living only the pure reality of the religious or the spiritual mind. And I did not care for science. And there came a time that I thought that all these things were not necessary, that I should cut my beard and then, try to behave like anyone else. After all, my consciousness is not going to change based on the dress that I put on. And then so I just became, to dress normally, and then that was one phase. Then there was another phase, and in that phase what I did was, I have to go more into the science, and especially for the past 18 months or to 2 years, and I just began to understand that it is easier, that it is more precise to use science, particularly the brain science, to understand these two types of consciousness. One is just more precise and geared to the materialistic world and understanding how it functions. And the other is the world that is unlimited intelligence, which is located in the midbrain area. So that's how I did this program called the Midbrain Miracle Method. Those of you who have not seen that, Google, it's on the Google Hangout. So if you go to Midbrain Miracle Method, you can see, and I have some scientists are also on the show with me. And there I even pointed out to the scientist to whom I was talking about, look, the way you figure out things is different from the way I figure out. For instance, yesterday I was telling Jay, the scientist who was working on this, on the sounds that I have been using to enhance intelligence. And in the research, they found out that this sound was able to, a vowel, which the vowel I gave to Wayne Dyer, the R sound, can pierce through the brain and go to the anterior cingulate. And he was surprised. He said he didn't even want to take my project, although I was paying them. And he said, maybe it will have some, you are chanting it or hearing it, maybe you will have some, activity in the auditory cortex, not beyond that. But then we saw the sound going to the anterior cingulate, and I tell you that I never knew what the anterior cingulate was until I was talking to this gentleman who said that is very significant. And it's very remarkable. After I heard this, and I just went and then miraculously on the Google search, I found something about the anterior cingulate. I did not do any, detailed search or narrow down the search or anything. Just I wanted the material that I wanted to look at. And this is about the parents wanting their children to have a big anterior cingulate, because the big anterior cingulate can give them advantage over other kids, more intelligence, more ability to grasp things. And I was telling Jay, look, you have to work 20, 30 years to find out about the anterior cingulate. If I want to know about something and that thing presents itself, that's why he said, search itself is ignorance. Discussion itself is groping in darkness. We should be able to know everything that we want to know instantaneously, and that is a mysterious phenomenon, that's a miracle. And that can happen when we are in touch with the divine consciousness, that is the midbrain. So we need to have both, and that is the only way we can bring about a new civilization. And faith can do that. That's why Jesus said, faith can do miracles. With faith, you can move mountains. It was through faith that he was able to convert water into wine. Do you think that is a story, a superstitious one? No, it was real. In Ramalingam's life, the same thing happened. And in those days, there was no electricity. In the 1860s, when this happened. And he was reading something or writing something, and it was midnight, and he had an oil lamp, and he did not know the difference between oil and water, so he had a water jug, and then he just poured the water into the lamp, and the lamp kept burning. Because in his mind there was no difference between oil and water. That is the consciousness he has. So whatever you think at that time is the reality. Now quantum physics is saying the same thing, observer reality. The observer is more important. Even the physical reality that looks very solid and non-changing to the physical eye, itself is subjected to consciousness. And not ordinary consciousness, but the consciousness that you can tap into when you go into the midbrain or the pineal gland, the pituitary gland. And then when you go into the cerebellum area and then act from there, then you can create these miracles where you can access the divine intelligence, where you can access faith in abundance. So the faith bridges the gap between different realities. In faith is unifying reality. So we have to have faith. It is not enough if you go to a church on Sunday alone, or a synagogue on Friday, or temples on Friday. It is ridiculous because you cannot do anything there. Because it is a training that has to eternally go on in your mind. Meditation is part of your breathing, just as you breathe, because breathing itself is a meditation. That we don't realize that. We don't put attention to that. And if you understand breathing totally, then you will understand that breathing can stop at one point. It will get refined stage by stage, and at one point breathing will stop. Unless the breathing stops, the nostril breathing, the lung breathing stops, and then some other internal breathing takes over, nobody is enlightened by my standard. Then it becomes, it takes you to a different domain where you can access the highest reality, the highest intelligence, the highest faith, the highest love. And if we are able to get people of this nature, then the world can change. Don't think that everybody can do it. It is true to some extent. But then we have to start somewhere. At least put this consciousness into our mind. That is the Thanksgiving message, that We have to bring back faith and not just go to the church only on Sundays and then just listen to the music and come back. That's not going to work. Or listen to the sermon and come back. But it has to really distill into your DNA and change the DNA. And what is the message? The message is faith. Faith is not simply religious or spiritual. Let me give you a definition of faith, which I have been working on for some time. Faith is utter positivity, complete utter positivity. Now, we don't have that utter positivity. We don't have the faith that we will be able to say a house or a car that we want by next month. We don't have that faith because the rational mind comes and says, no, that's not going to happen. That's ridiculous. That can happen, provided we understand that it is a matter of neurology. That's why I like to use science. Faith is a matter of neurology. If you don't believe in things, then you are not activating the certain neurons. And that's why I recommend this book by Newberg, and I was with him on a hangout not too long ago, a month ago. And his book, I think that everybody should read that book that he wrote with another gentleman. He's the primary author. The book is called How God Changes Your Brain. And then he contrasts the atheist brain with the believer's brain. The atheist brain, because it doesn't want to expand its consciousness, want to believe in things, is not able to activate a certain neurons, while the believer's brain are able to activate those neurons. So it's a matter of neurology. So if you want more neurons to come into activity, what that means is you will have more intelligence. So that's why he has named this book, How God Changes Your Brain. So if you have faith, it's going to change your brain. And then the boundary between the illusion and reality stops. The pineal gland can do that. Until we are age 8, we don't have the distinction between illusion and reality. And it comes only after we are 8, the sex hormones develop, and then we live in a separated reality. So we have to get back to that reality in which we can just think and manifest everything. There are domains within the brain that correspond to various galaxies. All the galaxies are within our brain. The other day I was reading, there are planets like the Earth in the Milky Way from NASA, some 8.4 million or 84 million, doesn't really matter. All these planets, all these galaxies are represented within our own consciousness. So our consciousness contains everything. But then we are completely lost in living this rationalistic consciousness and leaving everything out. That's not real education. So I want to see that when we have in the curriculum an inclusive education, where we are able to communicate with the extraterrestrials. That's why I like the Harvard scientist Johnny Mack, who wrote the book Passport to Cosmos. And he was criticized by Harvard. Harvard gave him a hard time that he has to go to the court and then retain his reputation and position. But then I recommend again another book by this book by Passport to Cosmos by Johnny Mack. He says that we have to really be in touch with these people, and they can give us knowledge that that are not available to us. Even look at this silicon chip that we have, the computer chip we have, and it is according to this what is his name? This gentleman who was working in the military, he wrote a book, and I forget his name. He said that there was a ship that was coming from out of from some galaxy, some from planets outside, and then it got shipwrecked, and then even the people who, our military shot them down. Roswell, yeah, the Roswell place where it happened. And then from that shipwrecked place where they found this silicon chip, then the Bell Lab developed our computers from, modern computers from that silicon chip. So that is a technology that, the computer technology that we have, came from the outer space. So we have to be totally open to these things. And that is the message. We should have faith, we should have science, we should open ourselves to everything in order to change our life. And one final message, there are two things that I want to talk. One thing is about compassion. Again, it's also a matter of neurology. I've been talking about compassion. In my previous lifetimes, I spent all my life weeping for the poor people, weeping for the diseases of people. God, I pray to God, why would we have to go through this old age? Why would the cells have to age? Why should there be a pain? Why can't we be like angels and then be free? Why is the earth plane so condemned? And it is getting worse and worse. And people are dying without food, without even water. But we have no compassion at all. We just are lost in this materialistic world, having fun. But while people of our own race is suffering and dying without food and water, where is the compassion gone? Why are we insensitive to these things? Even in the United States, people are suffering, the richest country in the world, and we don't have any compassion naturally coming to us. It is again a matter of neurology, because I have coined this expression, the neurology of compassion. And where is it is? Again, it is in the anterior cingulate. And if you read Newberg's book on how God changes your brain, he writes about the special neuron called the one economon neurons within the anterior cingulate that can develop compassion. So I was very excited to know about that, because the techniques that I give, the mantras I give, can get into that area and give you not only highest intelligence possible, but also develop compassion. Then the expression like in God we trust and and love and light, all these things we write, will become for the first time meaningful when the one economon neurons become active within the anterior cingulate. Then we will naturally be compassionate. And compassion gives the highest intelligence possible, and it blurs the boundary between reality and illusion. And what that means is you can think and manifest that thing. That's what's happened to people who are living in other planes. The other planes are out there, and then there are living beings there, and all of them are able to do everything. Then they don't age, they don't have death, and they just transform as they want, what they want, and all these freedoms are theirs. But here we don't have any of that happening. That's really disconcerting. So what we need to do is we have to bring these two things together, science and religion together. And particularly faith is in danger now, because we have dumped totally faith into the ditch, and then do not know how we can develop faith. I think everybody will resonate with me when I say this is how I feel. I don't have a natural feeling of faith. Can I cultivate it? I'm going to give you a mantra that will give you faith, but also at the same time will develop your neurology, so that it goes hand in hand. Now, this is one that I have given many times, and most of my students know that. But for those who have not been exposed to my teaching, and this is the famous chant from Swami Ramalingam, and who cried for even the fish when he was trying to live, while the fisherman was trying to catch the fish. My God. And he looked at the plant and that was dying without water. And he looked at the people who went begging from door to door, but still was not able to get food. And then that's the time he prayed to God, God, what's happening? Why would they suffer like this? And you are there, you are the most compassionate being. Come down. Enough is enough. And that reminds me the same predicament of Jesus, who said, what was his prayer? Thy kingdom come to the earth, as it is in heaven. So there is a deep contrast between the two. Heaven is full of joy, compassion, love, and ability to manifest everything you want, and no death, no disease. And we are capable of that. Why did Jesus come here? And does Christianity really preach that? Very little. The kingdom, thy kingdom has to come to this earth plane, as it is in heaven. And that was the real thing. Until then, give me my daily bread because I have to eat. Otherwise, if I don't eat, the body will die. So that is secondary. And then also, please don't tempt me with material things. Then I will be lost in this world and I will have no faith. Please give me, please don't tempt me. Give me my daily bread. But then, eventually, the most important thing, the kingdom on this earth plane. Thy kingdom has to come to this earth plane. The same message Ramalingam said. The world has to become full of joy, like heaven on earth. Heaven on planet earth. That is the only way that we can get permanent liberation from human suffering. It's not going to be, economic affluence that is going to guarantee it, because all the Western countries are economically affluent. But look at the vices here. Everywhere people are unconscious, drinking and shooting around, going and killing people, and lost in this Maya illusion. And what happens to faith or compassion? It is completely lost. So we have to incorporate that. We have a spiritual emergency. We have to bring faith here into this world. That alone can save it, because the science is okay. Science is growing fast. Science is being taken care of because the government sponsors science. But the government cannot sponsor faith. That's the thing. George W. Bush wanted to do that, but he could not do it, because faith-based organizations are indeed needed. Faith has to be brought back. So what's the mantra for faith? That is the chant of Ramalingam. And the chant was given to Ramalingam by Shiva, coming from another planet, a divine archetype of carrying the highest intelligence and the highest compassion, and giving it to Ramalingam. Ramalingam, I know you have been crying, and I read your mind, and you wanted to have no suffering, no diseases, no aging, and you wanted everybody to have everything. And that is a great prayer. And I just came to you just to tell you that there is a way to do that. And I am going to give you the mantra, and he gave this mantra. That's how this mantra came to Ramalingam. It came from the divine himself to alleviate suffering and also to give faith as well as intelligence simultaneously. So I'm going to give that to you. Close your eyes. And I'm going to chant it now. Arutperum Jyoti, Arutperum Jyoti, Tanipperum Karunai, Arutperum Jyoti. The sounds are important than the meaning. The sounds are capable of going into the entire brain and also into your DNA and change you into a new human being. Because the sounds were given by the divine himself to transform humanity, to make the human being the most intelligent, the most compassionate, and also the one who will live eternally forever without disease, without suffering, without pain. Don't we all need that? We need that. Arutperum Jyoti, Arutperum Jyoti, Tanipperum Karunai, Arutperum Jyoti. I'll give you the meaning of these phrases. Arul Perum Jyoti. Arul means omniscience, for which we are eligible. Not physics, chemistry, math alone. When we need omniscience. And that is given just by this 3 syllables, Arul, will give you omniscience. Not only omniscience, but omnipotence. Not only omnipotence, but omnipresence. So this one little word here, comprising of 3 syllables, can do everything. Arul Perum Jyoti. This omniscience, what is it? It is a vast light. It's a quality which is a vast light, immeasurable light. It is like a laser beam. When Arul enters into a body-mind, the whole body-mind becomes light. And it is the pure emotion of love and compassion for everyone. And once Arul is there within you, then you cannot even bear the suffering of even a mosquito. You will be so full of love. And that love will transform everything. And you will look at the mosquito will evolve. Then there is no hatred or distinction. Arul Perum Jyoti, Arul Perum Jyoti. It is repeated twice. Tanipperum Karunai. Tanipperum Karunai means it's a very special mercy of the divine. And that's the most important thing. It's not going to happen through the neurology changing. So all my attempts to talk in terms of changes taking place within the brain and the sounds helping with that process. They are all true. But what is the most important thing that needs to happen? And that is one-on-one relationship with the divine. The divine has to come and talk to you. That's the most important thing. And you have to understand the miracle. The miracle of water turning into wine or water turning into an oil in the case of Swami Ramalingam. All these things are going to happen. That's why I have of late announced that I am more, inclined to go and accept my avatarhood. That's why I recently made some videos for you which says that after all, how I have been able to help people in the past 25 years is because of my own spiritual nature, of my own miraculous power. And I don't have to shy away from that. And then the two important personalities that I have chosen to represent my own consciousness and be and use their energy with my energy, or Swami Ramalingam on the one hand and Shruti Sai Baba on the other hand. Both of them vibrate with compassion, ultimate compassion, to evolve humanity without any agenda. That's why I decided that I would go into that domain and then make that compassion available, makes those miracles available, so that you don't have to do a lot just to showing a light to my picture, which I would not have recommended before. But I do that now, quite deliberately, because that is really something. There is a science behind it. I don't have time to, maybe in another video I will do that, because it is a very simple one. And through this simple technique that you will be able to get a lot of benefit. So Arutperum Jyoti, Arutperum Jyoti, Tanipperum Karune, Arutperum Jyoti, 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 Jyoti Suyam. Jyoti, Jyoti, Jyoti Param. Jyoti, Jyoti, Jyoti Arul. Jyoti, Jyoti, Jyoti Shivam. Jyoti, Jyoti, Jyoti Shivam. Jyoti, Jyoti, Jyoti Shivam. What's going to give you faith is just chant this with a candlelight and then pray. Your prayers will be answered. That is the easiest way that you can develop faith. And when faith is there within you, then you evolve. You evolve into an angel. And that is our destiny. Collectively, humanity should commit itself to this process. Then only we can change. So the final message is both of them should go hand in hand. But then, as Einstein said, religion starts where science ends, because that is the ultimate teaching, the ultimate experience that you want to have. Now, today is a very special day that I gave this teaching, because this is the day that has the energy to change the karma of people. So no matter what you do, how many books you read, how many lectures you go to, you won't be able to change unless the divine directly participates in it, because that's what I want to assume, that role of erasing the old consciousness or karma of people. Not only those of us who are praying to you, but everyone, every human being, every animal, every insect, every plant have to grow into evolution so that they will all be happy. It doesn't make any sense that anybody should suffer. Everybody should be happy and without limitation. No limitation at all. And we can all join together and create this. It's not going to cost money for people to get together and then pray. And that prayer will help not only those who are praying, as I said, but everything, the whole world will change. The earth plane, it has been expecting this for a number of years. Now is the time, because it is the golden age. I'm happy that the divine gave this opportunity for me to come in front of the camera. And thanks to Google, I have always been very thankful to them, because I could broadcast. Otherwise, just imagine, can I go to the network, and then it's impossible for me to do that. I don't have the clout, nor the money to do that. But this one, I think I bless Google for providing this service to reach you. Thank you. God bless.